We are on.
All right. Hello and welcome to the February 2024. Sorry, the February 21st, 24 public workshop on the Coast Bus Transposition. I would like to open the workshop now at 6 p.m. Brad Nichols, the CEO of Coast, will give a presentation on Coast and its future in Newmarket.
Thank you, and I have with me tonight Michael Williams, who's our Director of Operations as well. He has a portion of the presentation as well as we get into it. Really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak in a workshop format. We can get a little deeper into whatever it is you'd like to talk about tonight than a traditional council meeting. So we prepared a slideshow that's a little bit longer, gives you a lot more context into sort of where things are at Coast today, how Route 7 is working, and maybe even some options down the road if that's something you'd like to get into. Wow. Coast is we're a nonprofit resource for all, and we're an organization who's nonprofit organization who's really committed to our mission, and that mission was restated in 2017, and we've really as a whole within the organization truly live by our mission.
Oh no! May I see that?
I am gonna.
That is not. That was a computer error that was supposed to fix. You want this one?
It always
Yes,
tries to
please.
update at the most inconvenient times.
Don't mess it up too much. So we have a 40+ year history here in the Greater Seacoast. We've tirelessly worked to shape the region's public transit system while focusing on better meeting the growing needs of the region, whether that be the residents, businesses, or nonprofit service organizations we serve. We are constantly adapting and responding to the changing puzzle of fluctuating local, state, and federal revenues that we have to deal with, and there's a lot of change there. And that has really been complicated more recently by COVID and accelerated inflation post-COVID. Every dollar invested in Coast generates just over $4 of economic activity in the local and regional economy. Our $31 million economic impact for the current year we're in includes Coast's direct, indirect, and induced effects on spending, as well as the economic impact of access provided by our services. Investments in Coast are investment in the economy, in the economic growth of the region. We connect people to places and communities, whether it be workers to jobs, students to educational opportunities, or consumers to goods and services. Public transportation affordably connects people to where they live and to the places they need to be. We play a vital role in every community we operate in. We also help seniors maintain their independence and stay connected to their community and the services they rely upon. And we connect riders to the social service network that supports many people in our communities, help get the help they need to thrive. And this year we were honored to receive the Community Action Program of Stratford County's Community Champion Award, which was really just a wonderful recognition of the work that all our staff do. We have been rebounding from COVID. The biggest part of that was returning to full staffing, which we did over the course of this summer and fall. And we've been able to get out from underneath temporarily suspended services. And the result has been increases in ridership greater than 35% month over month, or year over year, sorry, for the past 6+ months. Route 7 on-demand ridership is roughly 95% of pre-pandemic levels. And this June to January, ridership is up 42% over the same time period the year previous. Looking ahead, we are facing a 5% budget deficit starting in about 7 months. In fiscal year 24, one-time federal grants called out in the navy and the gold in the chart on the left will make up 33% of our operating budget. So this year, by next year, these will be fully expended, forcing more of our traditional FTA funding to be utilized for the operation. And that's the light green section on the left and the right. And you'll notice on the right it grows tremendously to replace those one-time funds that are being fully expended. So for the first time in years, we're actually projecting a sizable deficit, called out in red on the chart on the right. We expect to go from having a gain in fiscal year 24 to nearly $450,000 loss in fiscal year 25. Of note, starting next year, we expect to receive nearly $357,000 more from the state of New Hampshire to support our operation. And that really is due to the successful efforts initiated by the New Hampshire DOT and supported by a new statewide public transportation coalition we put together with the city of Dover's help last year. The effect was to reduce our previously estimated fiscal year 25 budget deficit by over 26%. And you'll notice the chart on the left, you can barely see a fluorescent yellow sliver and how that changes on the right with increased state funding. Increased state investment is a key part of this puzzle. Unfortunately, there's nothing that can be done this biennium. So fiscal year 24 and 25 are set, the state budget's set, but we will be advocating for increased state funding come next biennium, which the negotiations, the discussions on that will start this summer. So how we got here. Since 2009, Coast has used a series of one-time federal grants to support our growth. These grants, on top of our traditional federal funding, have been the primary way we've been able to grow over the years, and our stringing of these grants together is coming to an end. We've done a really great job of stringing them together over time. The particular grants we've used also benefited the region by having higher federal participation rates. So out of every dollar of expense, these grants either covered the whole dollar or 80 cents of that dollar, versus our traditional grants, which would cover around 50 cents of that dollar. We knew this was coming, and we've been working on chipping away at the issue, but it was really complicated by the pandemic and exacerbated. So what now? At Coast, we're committed to doing whatever we can do to get the job done and help people get to where they need to be. So since 2009, we've grown and provided hundreds of thousands of additional trips using the federal funding available to us only through multiple one-time grants. We took advantage of it. We knew what we were doing. To sustain what we built, however, new short and long-term funding streams must be identified and secured. Or, absent that, we have a fiduciary responsibility to limit our operating expenses to the funding that we have available, which would likely mean significant service reductions. So we have a number of potential funding sources to help cover with this fiscal year 25 deficit. We have a tremendous experience in generating advertising revenues, and those advertising revenues have been growing significantly in the last couple of years. So we expect we'll be able to take advantage of that. We're trying to get involved in charitable gaming to the extent that we can. That is not something our organization probably would have gotten involved in even 5 years ago, but honestly, times have changed, and it is a reasonable revenue source for nonprofits in the state now. We are looking at municipal and partner funding increases. You'll see that in our request this year of the town. We're looking at using reserves as a near-term solution. And then other unidentified non-USDOT federal or private funding sources. And I'll say we're actually about to launch a major gifts campaign, which in addition to raising funds for the new facility we're trying to construct, will also include philanthropic giving directed towards our annual operating expenses and creating an endowment to help fund future operating needs. Our ideal scenario is that we maintain our current fixed route and demand response service levels. We've taken a number of steps to do that. There are a number of steps still to do, but we feel confident that we will get closer to our goal than further away. And quite honestly, over the years, we've found that that urgency can be the mother of invention in terms of solving problems that we've had to face, and we've certainly faced a number of them in the past. Our most immediate tasks are to know where we stand with our member communities and other stakeholders. So meetings like this are great for us to gauge that. Ideally, we need to find solutions to this issue by working closely with you all over the next few months. That said, I am trying to give you some additional context to why our request went up by 24.9% this year in the case of...
And this is a good point to show this. That won't go into effect because our budget's already done. Because the council has to get it done by October 15th.
Okay.
So we won't see any increase. It's not an increase in this current operating budget. We're talking fiscal year 26.
Sorry, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. But which, that 24.9%, it's a $6,400 increase for the town of Newmarket.
Yeah.
Newmarket, sorry. Somewhere, some of the other communities, that dollar figure is significantly higher, just because of the size of their portion of our operation. So let's focus on the services we provide in Newmarket. Route 7 On Demand is an advanced reservation only service. Trips may be reserved up to 2 weeks in advance and as late as the evening before the day that the ride is needed. Service days are Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and our hours are between 9:30 a.m. and 5:15 p.m. Service to and from designated stops, so these are the former stops along Route 7, our fixed route in this corridor, are $1.50 each time a rider boards. And if you want to be picked up from a non-designated stop somewhere within 3/4 of a mile of one of those designated stops, your fare to board is $3. We did we did temporarily suspend Saturday service between May of 22 and May of 23, but we did reinstate that. And in the interim, while we were not operating Saturday service, we added an extra weekday on Tuesdays so that there was still 4 days of service maintained in your community. The top trip purposes for the service are for employment, even though it only runs 4 days a week, shopping, and medical services. We are projecting ridership growth of between 15 to 20% this year on the route I mentioned earlier. We're 45% or so, 42% up so far. So I still think those numbers are pretty conservative. I don't know where I got plus 17 year to date. So it was well, I know, because it's a longer period than year to date. Anyways, the average trip length on the service is 5.9 miles. So we serve a 1.5 mile diameter around downtown, and then a 1.5 mile corridor along Route 108 south going out of town. Similarly, we do the same thing in Exeter and around the Market Basket in Stroud. So our next year's request of the town will be for $32,172. and that's directly against Route 7 on-demand services. And I mentioned what that represents in terms of a dollar figure change, just over $6,400, and a percentage change, 24.9%. And that is the minimum contribution rate that our board set for any community in our network. So minimum, communities that pay the minimum are Berwick, yourselves, and Exeter. At this point, I stop to ask if there are any questions.
I have some questions, if I may.
Yes, Councillor Dornblue.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out tonight. I really appreciate having the opportunity to talk about Coast and what transportation can happen here in Newmarket and how we've been partnering for so long. I'm wondering if you have the number of riders on Route 7, those figures, and the number of riders with an origin in Newmarket, or where Newmarket is the destination. That kind of information would interest me, and also the resulting cost per ride. If you look at the cost that it takes for Coast to operate the route, and the number of riders, where does that fall in the mix if you compare it to other routes in the system?
So
I know they're different routes, but
yep. So Route 7 on demand is not a route anymore.
Right.
We call it that.
Right.
For consistency of branding. We added the on demand part. So it's a demand response service. Those are the most expensive services for us to provide. We transitioned to this model because there simply was not enough ridership on the fixed route
right.
to justify running that type of service. So while it is more expensive on a per trip basis, it is less expensive to operate than the fixed route service was or had been. We are carrying about 1,400 passengers a year on Route 7 on demand right now, and that's split between Exeter and Newmarket. About 46-47% are rides originating in Newmarket.
Okay.
And Saturday is about as busy as a weekday. Cost per ride, I unfortunately do not have that number on me. That's a great number to have brought, but I apologize, I did not bring that.
The cost broken down by the community's contribution under the ask is around just over $40 per ride.
Right. I was, looking at actual costs, but that's good. That's a good starting point, I guess.
Coast's operating cost per vehicle hour, so a vehicle on the
Yep.
road is $106.44. That's our
Okay.
current year operating cost. That does not include our administrative costs because those don't scale by more service or not, so we typically back those out.
And that's an average across all types of
That's an average
services.
across our entire system, all vehicle types, CDL and non-CDL. So the actual cost in Newmarket would likely be a little bit lower because it's a smaller vehicle. The driver, as a non-CDL driver, is paid a little bit less.
Yeah.
They're cheaper to maintain and more fuel efficient.
Thank you.
Councillor LaMattina.
So, if I understand correctly, you were predicting a deficit for 2024. You've overcome that?
We're predicting a deficit for 25.
You are now for 25.
We are now.
But wasn't last year, I believe last year you were predicting a deficit for 2024. Is that not correct?
No, we were projecting a slight gain in 24.
All right. When you look at all the routes, I think it's safe to say Newmarket is at the bottom of the totem pole. And if you have a $450,000 deficit for next year, even though Newmarket is contributing to that, is Newmarket likely to be one of the things that get cut?
So this depends on the cooperative working together. And so every community on our system, and finding ways to fill that gap. If the communities come up with the increases we're asking for, then we're a whole lot closer to filling that gap. We're probably somewhere in the $260,000 range in terms of a funding gap. If we were able to get some revenues through the charitable gaming, maybe we get that down to 200,000. We're at that point, we can probably cover a good portion of that with reserves on a short-term basis, and we can sustain service until we get to the point of hopefully seeing another increased commitment by the state to help fund operations, not only at Coast, but across the state. Now, I'm going to say that's not an easy lift, and that's where we need everybody to help us with that lift.
I understand that.
It is, yes, this is one of our lesser used services. That said, we know for the people who use it, it is a critically important service. And that's really, when we had, and I'm going to forget the years now, but we had a proposal to actually eliminate service, and we went out for public comment on that. And the comments that we received, we sat down with Steve and with the Exeter town manager, Russ, and we came up with a way to save some basic level of service for the folks who truly need it. And that has evolved over time to what we have today. So we understand the importance of it, and it's the last thing we want to do.
And just for the council, remember, for us it was a double whammy. Not only did we get reduction of Coast, but we were being served by Wildcat Transit.
Yeah.
And we had a number of people using that to get to work on the university, and they just shut that down altogether. So we lost all public transport in Newmarket.
Thank you for bringing that up, if I may.
Councilor Dornbull.
Thank you. So since we did lose, or Newmarket did lose the service through Wildcat, we effectively also lost connectivity to the remainder of the Coast system. And so for me, it's difficult. So it's difficult to envision how to grow the Newmarket Exeter corridor without connectivity to the remainder of the system as an isolated kind of isolated service. So one of the conversations I would like to have is how we can reconnect to the remainder of Coast, so that for people who are interested in utilizing public transit for employment, or who have to use public transit for employment, there's more opportunity. And I know that Route 5 was operated by Wildcat, but since Wildcat's not operating it anymore, maybe there's an opportunity for us to do something creative and different. So could you speak to that, to how one might create a connection between Newmarket and Dover, let's say, or well, Portsmouth is not a good option because it's so far around the bay, but going that way.
I'll turn things over to Michael, and he can run through some scenarios that we have played with.
Yes, we brought some possibilities. There's a number of different possibilities, and we also brought some costs because there are some large figures involved. First, to give a real, my next slide is the cost. So our hourly cost is $106.44. That's our current cost per hour. So if we were talking about a service, no matter what it looked like, of one vehicle running between, let's say, 6:30 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. For that span of a day, running on weekdays, 252 weekdays a year, we're talking about $375,000. That's total operating cost for that new service. If you add Saturdays, it's an additional $77,000. That's for a single vehicle. If we ran a fixed route service, it does come with the legal obligation to provide the ADA complimentary paratransit. That's the door-to-door service for people whose disability prevents them from being able to use the fixed route. And there, depending on where that fixed route goes, there's the potential for significant exposure of people who don't currently use that service having access to it, and that would come with additional costs. One of the big challenges here for funding is that our Federal Transit Administration formula funds that come to the region for public transit, which subsidize about 57% of Coast's current operating, are fully expended in the region. And so there is no new FDA funding currently available. And so all funding for any expanded service has to come from some new funding source, whether that is local, state, or significant federal increases in funding. A quick history on the current Route 7, just to show, this is ridership of Route 7 over the last 20 years. You can see it was growing up until 2015. That service connected to Portsmouth via Greenland, and that's when Greenland and Portsmouth backed out. The service changed to a 4-day-a-week service just between Exeter and Newmarket, and that's the first Green Line. And then ridership was pretty low. In 2018 is when we transitioned to a demand response model. Because the low ridership, it allowed us to not run the bus when no one wanted to ride it, and it reduced overall operating costs. That type of a model is more efficient with a very low ridership system. If you get to moderate ridership, it becomes expensive, and if you have high ridership, unlike fixed route where the costs are pretty steady when you have success, with demand response, the costs rise significantly when you have success. So that's the history of our ridership now. So one option for a fixed route would be basically the fastest route between Newmarket and Dover. Going to the Dover Transportation Center would allow connection to the rest of the coast system and the seacoast. Going through Durham, it does mean that there is some overlap with Wildcat Transit routes between Durham and Dover, but Wildcat Transit doesn't run consistently throughout the year, whereas this service could. This could be an hourly route that connects with the other hourly routes in Dover. Almost all of our routes are hourly, but it does open up quite a significant potential for ADA demand, especially in Durham that currently has no ADA service and didn't with Wildcat Route 5, because Wildcat as a university system is exempt from that federal regulation and they do not provide it. Another option, which would be the same cost but would not connect to the rest of the coast system, is this through Durham to Lee. We brought this just because there have been at different times people have expressed an interest in connectivity to Lee. It comes with pretty much all of the same costs and questions regarding ADA, but without the connection to the rest of the seacoast. Option 3 would bypass Durham, going through Lee to Dover. This would be a more infrequent service because you could not do a round trip on this in an hour, so it would be more like an hour-and-a-half route. It would not connect well to the rest of the coast system because every other hour you get to Dover when no other buses were there and you'd wait 30 minutes for the next bus. So it doesn't work very well, but it does allow for connectivity, and it has the potential for lower ADA exposure by avoiding Durham.
Yeah. How does Durham currently provide ADA service?
They do not.
They do not.
So they just say, tough, you're
As
on your
a
own?
university system, they're exempt from...
Well, I'm not asking Wildcat,
Town.
I'm asking the town.
So they have a volunteer driver program
Okay,
through Ready Rides.
which we have, yeah.
Right, that you have, but that's really it.
Okay.
Yes, so there's the potential for a significant market there. These are the fixed route options I saw. Demand response, you could also do something there. So just like Route 7 on demand, you could either add in your existing service area Tuesdays and Fridays, which currently are not served, or you could, and at that point, imagination's the limit. You could say, we're going to do a reservation-based shopping trip to some new service area. You could open it up to all of Newmarket residents, not just in the corridor that's currently assigned. You could have it go 2 times a day with reservations to Dover or somewhere else. You could really define this based on what you're trying to accomplish. And with low demand, this could be a lower cost way to go. But if you have moderate to higher demand, it would quickly exceed the cost of a fixed route. But it could establish that there's demand there, and it could help you see where that demand is wanting to go. So sometimes demand response systems end up morphing into fixed route systems once you see common travel patterns, and then you consolidate it into a route for efficiency.
So just on that common travel patterns, with our current on-demand system, what are some of the current travel patterns? You mentioned people coming into town for employment and shopping, but where are most of them going? Where are they coming from?
That's a great question. We could do further analysis on it. I know one of the largest sites is the Market Basket in that plaza in Stratham. People are going there from here and back. Also, Exeter Hospital and some of the medical facilities there are common destinations. Beyond that, I'd have to look at the data more specifically.
Okay. My next question is simply, with this kind of fixed route, do you make more money if those route is longer but it's connecting more populated places because you're getting more ridership, or is it more about smaller distances between two populated points?
So that's going to vary by community and what you're trying to accomplish. Generally speaking, if you're going for a high ridership route, then you want to connect a variety of dense needs, so housing, shopping, employment, and medical, along as straight a line as possible with as high a frequency of service as possible. That's going to get your best ridership outcome. Ridership is one goal of transit, and typically to really shoot for a high ridership system, you need it to run frequently. You think about your car, you want to be able to pull out your driveway more than once an hour, and it's the same with a bus. So buses that run every 15 minutes or less are considered higher frequency and can really succeed on the ridership front if that's the primary goal. Most of our system is designed around a coverage goal, which means it's mostly about giving access to people who either want it or for some reason need that access. It runs once an hour. That's not going to lure most drivers out of their car, but it's going to provide options to people who need those options. And so unless we're talking about much more frequent service, we're probably talking about coverage, which is more about giving options than getting high ridership.
Well, I just want to point out there have been plans to moving forward for a new 55-plus community in town, so that might be a potential source of future ridership. Imagine many of them will be able to. Most people in that community will be able to drive, but they may enjoy having the option. So that might be a future source of ridership in the future.
Absolutely.
And the other thought is that, the master plan's looking North Main Street off there for multifamily.
Right.
Not even age restricted. So.
Right.
So this route is probably the one that would be the most attractive on ridership because it goes through the densest places and it's the fastest connection to the rest of the system. So if that was your primary goal, this is probably the one that would accomplish that the best. That being said, I would highly recommend that before any new service was considered, if the funding was realistic and the community was interested, that there should be community outreach to understand what the community wants. We have survey questions we could ask to understand what's really needed, what would be successful.
And just for that one, you still have the big thing is grocery shopping. You still have a market on that one with the Hannafords and Dover.
Yeah.
My other question too, I know you said medical at the hospital. We're seeing a refocus in where we're bringing our ambulance patients. That they're not going to Exeter, they're going to Dover.
Okay.
They're going to the nearest ER.
They're going to either the nearest ER or they're not going to Portsmouth. But if it's something that's not ER related,
Oh, okay.
they'll go to Wentworth Douglas
Yeah.
by request. So I didn't know if you've seen a drop in requests from medical visits, or, then again, we do have a Wentworth Douglas facility in town.
Yeah.
So-
We're not doing emergency trips.
Yeah.
And so that would affect what we're seeing. And they wouldn't even ask us if that's where they want to go because we can't get them there. I don't know, I'd have to look up total number of medical trips over time to see if it's changed. But we certainly get a lot of requests to either leave, as you said, kind of the Newmarket Exeter bubble,
Yeah.
or to come into it that we can't meet right now. Also, you mentioned having a shopping option on this route. One thing to consider is whether you're considering this route as a replacement for the current Route 7, which would eliminate service to some destinations and locations that people are currently using, including for employment, or whether you're considering it as an addition, which of course would be more cost. If Exeter was interested in jumping on this bandwagon, the route could be extended through Newmarket to Exeter, basically along the Route 7 we were doing, and it would make it, instead of a 1 hour loop, a 2 hour loop. You run 2 buses on it, still hourly service, but it doubles the cost.
But it's finally we're back to being connected to the rest of the system.
Then you'd have an Exeter through Newmarket, Durham to Dover line, and people from Newmarket could travel in both directions.
Okay. Now, Councilor Facebook, you had your hand up?
Yeah, so this is something that you're not talking about actually doing in the very immediate future or anything. Is this, the cost of this would be extra on top of this? What would the, for a lack of a better word, what would the $32,172 buy us? Like,
Buys you what you have today, next year.
and with the potential that it could be canceled if your deficit isn't met.
Yes,
as
and
well, right?
we would keep you apprised of that through your board
Yeah.
representative.
Yeah, obviously I
And-
fully support.
And please understand, as soon as that's canceled, the check gets canceled as well. We don't pay any longer then.
Yeah, I have a question.
Councilor Blackstone?
So the ridership was like 2,000 round numbers, right?
1,400.
1,400.
Okay, even worse, 1,400.
Yeah.
That's $1,400, right, in revenue, or maybe $2,000 in revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you make the bus free? I mean, that money is irrelevant to you, and it could really drive ridership.
It's actually a debate they're having in big cities.
It is a debate they're having in big cities. It is, personally, I struggle with people devaluing things that are free. And so I think when you have skin in the game, you value that to a different degree. It is relatively low, but it is something that our other communities expect us to generate in terms of revenue. System-wide, that dollar figure is not small, and so we need that revenue.
Okay, because, for instance, the system we have here, right, that revenue is irrelevant.
It's very small compared to the total cost.
Yeah, it's rounding error, yeah.
Well, I don't think that's what he was trying to say, but
That's exactly what I was trying to say.
no, I meant that's what.
No, I understand the argument. I've done a lot of selling, and you give somebody something for free and it sits on their desk. Next time you come back, it's still on their desk. You make them pay some nominal amount, and they'll actually try it, right? But
One other consideration, if you're talking about a fixed route service, you could triple the number of riders and the cost for the service to operate it stays the same.
yeah,
Until you can't fit everyone in a bus, which we're not close to.
Right.
For a demand response service, if you doubled ridership, you would double operating, or close to double operating costs, because of just the nature of that demand, unless you get everyone grouped in a certain way. So there's some efficiencies, but not a lot. And
Yeah,
so
okay.
if you reduced or removed the fare, you could increase demand, and that would increase the operating costs, which would increase our ask to the community. So it would have that impact.
right, okay.
Okay, Councilor Dornbull.
Okay, thank you. So we've talked about using transit for going shopping, going to medical appointments, and employment. What we haven't talked about is recreation. And I'm wondering if there are any examples within the coast system that would be closer aligned with providing transportation opportunities to access recreational facilities or opportunities. For example, let's say a shuttle or what have you between Newmarket and Newfields and Exeter for people to explore by bicycle the trails, and maybe only go one way and then do the remainder on the bus or something to that effect.
So one challenge for us knowing the answer to that is that we don't track trip purpose or individual at all on our fixed route system. So we don't know why they're going where they're going, other than we do a survey every couple of years where we ask people their common trip purposes, and that's where we get that data. So if we take someone to somewhere that is next to a park and a mall, we don't know if they're going to the park or they're going to their job.
Right.
So that's going to limit our ability to know that. We certainly go to places where there are recreational sites throughout our system. I don't know how many people.
But not a specific service.
On our demand response service, so for example in Portsmouth provides demand response service through Coast beyond the ADA service for all Portsmouth seniors 62 and older and for people with disabilities. And one of the specific things they provide that service for is recreational activities. So senior center and a variety of other things. People can make reservations and get to those activities, and people do use it for that. Smaller number than use it for medical or shopping, but people do use it for that purpose. We don't provide any one-off trips. So everything we do is available every day or most days on a regular schedule. We don't do like an outing trip where we just go this Saturday if you want to go to this park.
Yeah.
One challenge we would have, there's possibility there, but we are prohibited from providing charter service by FTA rules that would compete with a private operator. So that comes in when you do one-off trips. You have to consider that.
Okay. One other question in regards to Route 5, the old Route 5. Would we have access to the ridership numbers on that route still? Would we be able to find those to see where the route was before it was canceled, and so we get an idea of what we might expect there if we were to go that route?
I assume UNH would be happy to provide those figures.
Yeah.
Not figures that we have today.
Right, okay.
All right. Oh, Councilor Blamatina?
Yeah, do I understand correctly that you have a pre-canned survey that we could issue and you have the ability to analyze it? Is that...
We have a list of survey questions we've developed for this type of scenario that we could send you and recommend. We don't have a ready-made survey mechanism for surveying your residents. When we survey, we typically are surveying our riders, and so we have, it's on the bus. Whereas if you're trying to survey your community, we would look to you for the best channels to do that.
We
But
could
do
do
have
it.
We do have the questions.
We could do it, but
I mean, how many questions is it?
I think it's five or six. It's meant to be as short as possible while getting enough information to know what
We have the software. We can do it in-house.
All right. Is there any other questions, comments? Yep.
can I indulge the council and ask if we could open up for public comment for in case the public wants to make a
To the
comment?
council?
Yes. Is everyone in council okay with us opening up to public comment? Okay, then we will open this up for public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this matter?
The one public person that, no, Carol?
Hi, Brad, how are you?
Oh,
Sarah's on the board.
Hey,
She's on the
how are
board.
you? I'm sorry.
I know you did, I stuck in. No, thank you for being here this
You're
week.
not on mic, that's the problem.
Oh, no, well, I have no comment.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Okay.
That's the-
All right. If there is nothing else, should we consider adjournment? Oh,
Do we want to do any next steps? Just what do we do next?
It's up to the council.
That's what I'm asking the
yeah.
council. Do you want to talk about that now?
And I will say this, since I'm the one who presents the budget to the council next year, I'm getting more pushback from the public. Why are we spending this and not getting services?
Exactly.
I'm hearing that rumbling. So I've got to take that into consideration when I write my budget next year.
all right. I guess we'll just open up for just a couple of questions. I'll just say that I think the route the fixed one route from Newmarket, Durham, and Dover. Thank you. Looks like a very good and useful site. I know for a fact there's also, we're talking about grocery stores. There is a grocery store in Durham. There's a Hannaford's in where the Durham marketplace used to be, as well as in Dover. So that is an option. If we could talk to Exeter and add, see if they're willing to include themselves on that list, and we can, drive down through Stratham. But I don't know where. Obviously, that's not on the table right now. That's a possibility of something we might talk about. But I think this is a very good route to look into. It does get us back into the coast network, correct? And I think this is something worth looking into.
Sorry, right.
Yes.
I'm sorry, did you state an estimated cost on this?
Oh,
So
That's what I was saying, yeah.
weekdays and Saturdays. Now this is the full cost without any outside funding, FTA funding. And so if this was replacing what you're doing now, that may free up a little bit of FTA funding to help with that. I
But
should defer that
$500,000?
yeah.
Also,
375.
the way our other
Plus the
routes,
77.
the way our other routes that go through multiple communities work is the cost of the route is spread among the communities. Now, there would have to be agreement from Durham, Dover, the other communities you went through if they wanted to participate, but that is a potential to share the cost if they wanted to.
And we would look to see if there were any ways to generate federal funds to cover some portion of that. They would not be our traditional federal sources. These would be unique, probably one-time grants that we would go after.
We're still considered rural under rural development, and
Not by the FTA.
not the FTA, we are for everything else, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, because you're part of the, I don't remember which urbanized area you're part of, but you're part of.
Yeah,
You're
Portsmouth,
part of
yeah.
one, yeah, Portsmouth.
Oh, Councilor Dornblue?
So as a follow-up to, go with Councilor Martinez's question, I would suggest that we task a committee, a group, whatever, with gathering information, having a conversation, and maybe developing objectives. It sounds like that's kind of what we should be starting with as a town. What are our objectives for the funding that we allocate to public transportation? So that we start with the basics, and we can feed that into the master plan process as well. Good opportunity to have some public input, to gather information maybe in a more detailed manner than a survey would allow. So that would be my recommendation, that we pursue a targeted and maybe concentrated conversation through a committee or work group.
Yes, okay. Councilor LaMattina, Councilor Glazebrook, did I see your hand over? Okay, Councilor LaMattina?
Yeah, so the Energy and Environment Committee is actually kind of working on transportation. I think if we throw it over to them and work with Councilor Duneblock to bring him in and let us come up with something, is that?
My only thing there is, we understand the environmental impact of public transportation, I think the bigger impact that we get, the committee will need to focus on is those with disabilities. That's the larger customer base.
And the economic
Yeah.
impact, I would imagine. I mean,
So-
and I think we need to also, I think it's important to not think about this, if we're going to have a very foundational conversation, that we not just think about public transportation as a service, as it is maybe demanded today, but where do we see ourselves heading as a town, and what role can public transportation play in that scenario, and what kind of public transit routes regionally do we want to develop and support?
I agree with, please just wait for me to call on you next.
Sorry, yeah.
No worries. I'm still new to this. This is my very first time running this, so I'm trying to remember my P's and Q's. Is it P's and, yes, it's P's and Q's. I will simply say that one thing we could also look into is, talking to the other towns about if this is something they would be
Yeah.
willing to split the cost on, because it'd probably be a much easier sell if we, and if we were only covering a third of this. And yes,
Just from experience, because I've done this conversation before, I don't think Exeter would join in.
okay,
The reasoning is they could figure a way to, it's a short distance for them to get from their downtown to where they need to go for their shopping.
Right.
And get back. They never were a big part of joining the larger system.
Yeah.
We always were, because of the fact we had a large student population at that time, as well as the number of rental units we have compared to other communities. Stratham still never kicked in, never will. Durham, I'm going to almost put up the same flag there. They don't need it because most
Yeah.
people are on the university one. In Dover, you're asking them to pay money to connect to us. So I'm not sure what would happen there. Not that it's not willing to have the conversation. I just want to make the realistic aspect. But I agree with Councilor Dormlett that this is something where, my biggest fear is it goes away and we try to rebuild it.
Right.
And once it goes away, if anybody knows about government budgeting, it's gone. I mean, that's why I used to see $1 in a lot of line items just to keep something alive. So I think, again, I think it's bigger than just, and I know the energy environment's looking at it, I think it's bigger than that. It's like, my biggest concern, and when we went through this, I think it was 17 or 18, it was the people who called my office and said, I don't know how I'm gonna get groceries every week because I can't drive. I don't know how I'm gonna get to my doctor's office because I can't drive. So I think that's the part that, for now, that plus the expansion in the future, that need to just keep in mind.
all right. Okay, Councilor Dongbot.
So besides the Energy and Environment Committee, which other existing groups might be called upon to contribute a representative to a group? Or, I mean, I'd hate for it to be assign. I'd much rather there were already, interest to pursue the conversation.
First of all, I'd keep it small,
Yeah.
no more than 5. I'd say 1 from environment, 1 from planning, 1 from the council, and 2 members of the public, with 1 being a rider.
I think that's a good composition.
That way you get the input. I could volunteer a staff person who's sitting in the room right now to serve as staff of the committee. But I think that's probably the best way to do it. You could start off as an ad hoc committee, just to look at options and to see where we are. And then if it's something that grows, legs, you can always make it a permanent committee plus more members. But just something to study it.
I just wanted to quickly say, we talked about other towns. I know we kind of just went by Lee. What do you think Lee's response would not?
Less than Stratham.
Okay. Being thorough on the list here.
The problem for us is geography.
Yep.
And that's what everybody, I hear it all the time that Newmarket's great. We're on the other side of the bay. And the other problem with geography for us is the big wall of Durham. Durham doesn't want to participate, so no, they can't get through there. When Coast was part of, when it was Coast was doing the university, that was a great system because it was all right in there. But we just have that issue that if anything we do, we have to somehow include Durham, to be realistic.
Okay. So I'm just gonna, does anyone else have any final things they need to say, or?
I think we're right. Do you?
No, the route that connects with Dover, not only do you connect with the coast system, but you also connect with the Wildcat Transit system. So you don't have to go to Dover to get to Portsmouth. You can go to Durham to get to Portsmouth on Wildcat. So.
Okay, just going to go over just some of the things we just went down. So, one, 5-person committee, planning board, energy environment, someone from town council, 2 members from the public, one of them a writer, to discuss this, possibly doing some sort of survey on town about the public transportation system. I think that's a good idea because that'll maybe give us some more idea about how much people want it back, who's going to be using it, how frequently. And the same committee is going to cover that. And I know it's, and maybe it's maybe it's not the best. Maybe they're not going to be super enthusiastic, but I still feel like we should ask the other towns,
Absolutely.
even if it's just to confirm that they are not interested, not right. So, but yeah, so we have committee, survey, check in with other towns, and yeah. And if that was it, do we now adjourn?
You recess until the regular meeting at 7.
Okay, I will recess us till the regular meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're back.
Okay, hello everyone. I call the regular meeting of Town Council to order at 7 o'clock on February 21st, 2024. And Councilor White, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so now roll call. I think we already mentioned in the beginning, but Councilor Conley is under the weather and cannot make it this evening, and all other members are present. All right, now we will move on to public forum. I will open public forum right now. Anyone from Newmarket who in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak, please step forward. We will give it a couple more seconds. See someone kicks down the door. Okay. Seeing as there's no one in the audience, I will close public forum at 7:01 p.m. Alright, and now I will move to accept a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second? Do I have anyone who will for February 7th?
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay. All right. Are there any changes to the February 7th meeting minutes? All right. Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Council Blaisberg,
Aye.
Council Lamatina,
Aye.
Council John Bluth,
Aye.
Council White,
Aye.
Council Blackstone,
Aye.
Council Ward,
Aye.
motion passes 6-0.
Okay. The next item on the report is the report of the town manager. Now I will turn it over to Steve Fournier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First item on my written report is that just update on the fiscal year 24 budget. With January finished, we've completed 58% of the year. We've expended 60% of the operating budget, which is in line with last fiscal year. While there are some overages, there's nothing out of the ordinary currently. Revenues are still on track with nothing out of the ordinary. Motor vehicle permits have rebounded and are higher than last year at this point. Building permits, however, are lower. We're not concerned about it, but we'll monitor the situation. The next item, I just want to run it by the council, and I had a lot of misgivings on doing this, but I know it's a lot of communities started it. I've researched how other communities have been getting information to the public about their local elections. After much thought and consternation, I am working with Media Services Division to have candidate profiles potentially placed on the town website and electronic newsletter. In addition, we'll have a voter's guide for the warrant articles. If individuals wish to participate, all we're going to do is send them a questionnaire, and they'll have to submit it before February 29th. And may include a personal photo and answer the following questions: their name, their address, the office they're seeking, their current occupation, education, length of time as a Newmarket resident, previous service on town committees or public service, and explain their interest on being elected to town office. They have approximately 350 words to do so. No personal attacks of any of their opponents or elected officials, employees of the town, or other inappropriate content will be placed on the web. Town staff would have the right to either approve or disapprove any profile. If a profile is disapproved, it will not be published in it. It would not be published in its entirety. So once thing, everything gets pulled out. And a reason would be made wide to the candidate. Like I said, I don't like doing this. I don't think it's the government's place to provide news. It's a slippery slope. However, I think it's necessary since we've been abandoned by Seacoast Media Group. Nobody's covering our elections. Even, we haven't had a reporter here, I think, since Councilor.
Yes.
was the reporter? I would like to try it this year to see how it works. I talked to other communities, other municipal managers in the state. I know two large ones that do it are Durham and Concord. Then I got a lot of, "What are you, crazy?" comments. But I think it's something we need to do to try to get some information out to the voters. We also don't have an organization in town doing candidates forum that we used to have. Again, we don't do it because we're neutral. We don't support any candidates. I always say I have 7 bosses and I work for whoever's up here. And I don't like getting involved in elections that way. And I don't even like being around on election day to make it look like I'm favoring one person. So there's no objection. We will try to see how it works. If something goes wrong, we're just going to pull a plug.
Yes. Did you have more to say? Or?
No, that's on that one.
Okay. Councilor Valentino.
The only thing I suggested maybe taking out occupation and education, that might prevent some people from.
They don't have to answer it. I mean, this is the same. Most communities, these are the questions they're asking. It's just to get some background on them.
It's just answer yes.
Yeah, you can just say yes.
Education, yes.
If we don't, we just won't fill it out. But
Okay. Was there any other question? I just had one or two. Just to be clear, this is open to anyone who's on the ballot. Is it also open to write-ins?
No.
No?
we don't know if it. Anybody could be. We don't know who the write-in is.
But like if someone decided I'm trying to run as a write-in?
As of right now, it's filed candidates. What I've talked to other communities.
Gotcha. Councilor Blackstone.
I would agree with Councilor Lamattina. I think you got to be careful about perceived bias, and I think occupation and education are things that could be qualifying.
I am more leaning towards not doing this at all, and this is the reason.
Yeah.
I try to get neutral,
Yeah.
and this is exactly the reason. You guys are feeding into it right there.
Well, I think if you just say, you know,
I-
why do you want to run, and why do you think you're the best candidate? And they can just
Which
put
I'm
that-
not. We're not asking for best candidate. We're asking why do you want to what do you want to run?
I
and
think
again,
asking for why you think you're the person they should vote for is a reasonable question.
Then this is why I
Yeah.
don't feel comfortable doing this, because we shouldn't be using the town website for.
All right. So is this a Councilor Glazeborough?
If you don't feel comfortable doing it, why are
Because
you?
I've got enough people asking me to do it,
Okay.
Okay. So
and I'm
Councilor.
punting it to the council. But it seems like, to be quite honest, it's being micromanaged that it could be that doing this in the future, and that's this exactly is my biggest fear.
Okay. Councilor Dornblut, then I'll say something.
I think it would be a great service to the town to have candidates have an opportunity to place their ask to the town somewhere, and for lack of a media opportunity or using social media or something like that, I think that the town website would be a good place for it for now. And then maybe we need to think about this a little bit further. But and whether or not somebody answers the question of occupation or education, to me is up to the person who's running, as long as it's not question A, B, C, D, didn't answer D, didn't answer B, didn't answer C, and that would look awkward. But if it's just a text that, I don't think anybody would feel threatened by, not answering a question, or not feeling comfortable answering a question. Shouldn't keep them from
And just
running.
to follow up, these are actually what you see a lot of the newspapers now submit to.
Yeah.
They don't even have the reporters covering. They just ask you to fill this out.
Councilor White.
You afford the opportunity. Don't make participation mandatory.
Nope.
Make it totally optional. If a candidate wishes to, it's up to them if they fill out anything to include their name.
Yep.
It's a candidate that's running. If they don't want the public to know anything, don't list anything.
That's exactly what we were going to do.
Okay.
And then using your own self as a barometer, put as much in there, as little in there as you want the public to know about you. Remember, it's a public office that you're running for. I would think someone would want public to know a little bit. And again, be your own judge on how much.
All right. What I was going to say was, first of all, I also agree this is definitely something more that the journalism side of things should be doing, and it's a shame that it doesn't. I did work for these people, but I'm not going to go into that. But at the moment, maybe putting these online, if people are actually saying, hey, why are you putting online, maybe that's like the impetus we need to get people to like say, go to the newspaper and say, hey, we want our town back, our town covered again. Guess my question, as far as this goes, like, we went over this list thing. None of these questions have to be required, or like, you don't have to require any answer to these. They can literally just put in, my name is Bob, and put it on there if that is so is their inclination, and it's not required, so that's fine. My question to you, Steve, is this something we are, as a council, deciding tonight, or is this something you are deciding?
I am just running it by you, and I will run with it tomorrow since this is a short time.
Gotcha.
And if it's, I'm gonna go with this. I wanted to see if there's any huge red flags. And, I mean, it seems like most people say, yes, go with it.
Yeah.
It's just I don't want to, and I'm trying to do the most neutral one and this is the one that works for most communities. So I'm just going to run with this and send this out to candidates tomorrow.
Speaking as someone who has worked on this, this is very, very neutral.
Yeah.
Well, it's about as neutral as it gets. And again, we're not going to let people like write anything in bad, like, the other candidates. So this is about as neutral as you can get. Ideally done by like a newspaper or somebody, but in lack of that, it's better to feel like it's better to get information out some way as opposed to not at all. And Councilor Lamatino.
Just for the record, I would say go with it.
Yeah, and just one of my big issues and what you bring up there is there are some times that councils run against the manager.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to, not right now, knock on wood, but that does happen in communities. So that would be one of my concerns in the future.
That there will be a conflict of interest. Yeah. That's a very clear and reasonable thing. But this is not anyone's idea of I don't think this is anyone's idea of an ideal.
Yeah.
But it is important that some information get out, and if no one else is,
we can do that.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. The next item is just I'd like to let the council know. I don't know if you realize this, that annually since I've been here, I think I missed one because of a snowstorm. Even during the pandemic, we did this. I've been meeting with the residents of Moody Point around this time every year. I used to go over to a house, and everybody would come over, and now we do it on Zoom. But I just meet with them every year, talk about what's coming up on the ballot. They ask questions, and then we do like a small state of the town and give them updates on what's going on. And they ask more questions. I love doing it. If there's other groups out there that would like to have this, I know there's issues coming up this year. I'm more than willing to do that, or sending staff to neighborhood meetings to meet. It's just a good way for us to reach out there as well.
like if a group wanted to, do something like that, who do they reach out to?
Give my office a call. We'll figure it out.
Gotcha.
And next, I just wanted to announce, with mixed feelings, just because she deserves it, but we'll miss her around town hall, that Sue Jordan is retiring effective February 29th after 35 years with the town of Newmarket. She started at the police department, then moved to the planning and zoning and building safety. She's seen many changes during her time in Newmarket. She's been a dedicated hard worker, and I would wish to congratulate her and wish her the best on her retirement. And finally, I am requesting a non-public session after this meeting under RSA 91A:3, the consideration of negotiation of pending legal claims and litigation. The council so wishes. That's all I have tonight.
Okay. All right, the next on our list is committee reports. Now, do we have any committee reports this evening?
Department reports.
Department reports.
Any questions there?
Any questions on the department reports? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to committee reports. Does anyone have any committee reports to give? Councilor Glazebrook.
I'm not sure if it's a subcommittee. The Willie Park Building Advisory Board. They met yesterday, and there was a question that would the town council like them to come at some point to give a presentation on what their plan is at all for that? That's something that people would be interested in seeing.
We can do that before a meeting.
Okay. Any other committee reports? Okay. Oh, hey. Okay. Yeah, so I was just at the Conservation Commission met on the 8th to talk about master plan update with Bart McDonough and Autumn Scott from the Stratford Planning Commission. The the town survey that went out has been closed. 400 residents responded to it. They are currently collating the data, but that's fantastic numbers. On March 16th, there will be a vision open house spacing workshop. I believe that will be here as well. And we had a couple of people come in from New Hampshire Fish and Game and the UNH Conservation Department to talk about some of our checklist for development for Newmarket Conservation Commission. All right, and that is it for me. And if there are no other committee reports, we will move on to old business. There is no old business this evening. So we will now move on to resolution and ordinances in the first reading. Now, if there is no objection to, I'm going to read this first ordinance by title only due to its length. And that would be the an ordinance number. Can you tell this is my first time doing this?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Ordinance number 4, 2023-2033, revisions to the administrative code. All right. All right. Okay. Next, we have resolution and 2023-2033. What is this? Sorry, using compensated absence trust funds. I won't read this one.
You got it?
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas the town of Newmarket, via the Newmarket PD and HR budgets, pay out $43,920.10 for compensated absences as a part of an officer's retirement. And whereas the compensated absences capital reserve fund was created for the purpose of paying for departing employees' compensated absences, and whereas the compensated absences capital reserve funds has a balance of $60,248.84. Now therefore be it resolved by the Newmarket Town Council that council does hereby approve the withdrawal of $43,920.10 from the compensated absence capital reserve fund to reimburse the town of Newmarket, equaling the compensated absences costs associated with the officer retirement earlier in the fiscal year. This resolution will lay on the table until the next regular meeting. Moving on, the town is to consider nominations, appointments, elections, and resignations. And I would accept a motion to approve Joan DiOrio to the Library Board of Trustees for a term to expire in April 2027.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any comment or discussion? I will just simply say Ms. DiOrio has been working with the library for a long time, and I'm glad that she is going to continue her good work on the board. All right, and now would the clerk please call the roll?
Council Glazebrook,
Aye.
Council Amatino,
Aye.
Council Dornblu,
Aye.
Council White,
Aye.
Council Blackstone,
Aye.
Council Ward,
Aye.
motion passes 6-0.
Okay, new business and correspondence. Is there any correspondence to the town council?
There is none.
Okay. Now, are there any closing comments by town councilors? Okay. All right. Before we adjourn, the town manager has requested a non-public session. I would accept the motion to enter a non-public session under RSA 91-A3 2E, consideration or negotiation of any pending claims or litigation which has been threatened in writing or filed against this board or any subdivision thereof, or against any member thereof because of his or her membership therein, until the claim of or litigation has been fully adjudicated or otherwise settled. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to enter a non-public session.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Council Claesbrook,
Aye.
Council Lavatina,
Aye.
Council Dorfman,
Aye.
Council White,
Aye.
Council Blackstone,
Aye.
Council Ward,
Aye.
motion passes 6-0.
And make sure we're off. Okay. All right, and we are in non-public?
Second.
Yeah.